Hello and welcome in. Welcome back to the show, guys. Week 10. We have NFL DFS and we have fantasy football. Currently, right now, we have a game in Berlin. We have the Atlanta Falcons and the Indianapolis Colts facing off. So that's two teams we don't have to worry about on today's slate. As I usually let you guys know, if you guys are watching for the first time, please leave your comments below as far as your fantasy football questions. We'll have those answered towards the tail end of the show. I'm going to walk through the slate real quickly here and get to your questions. So if you guys have a 1v1 question, make sure to point that out. 2v2, if it's a half PPR league, and how many teams are in the league, helps me better answer your questions. All right, without further ado, let's get right into it. I do want to mention I wrote down here how many teams we have on bye weeks. Obviously, this is very, very important just to kind of figure out more or less on the type of slate we're looking at right now. The bye weeks are Cincinnati, Dallas, Kansas City, and Tennessee. So we don't have to worry about players such as Jamar Chase this week. And when I say don't have to worry about them, it's more on the DFS end as far as trying to get them fitting in your lineups. Obviously, in season long, it is unfortunate not to have those big players like CeeDee Lamb, like Jamar Chase, and Kansas City, even Rashee Rice, who has been playing really, really well. All right, let's get right into the quarterback position. And I kind of want to reference some of these game environments real quick here because we have one game with some weather conditions to really worry about right now. And it is the New York Giants and the Chicago Bears. The game is being played in Chicago at Soldier Field. There is flurries. There's some wind expected into it. And once again, for daily fantasy reasonings, I do believe that most people get scared off of that. And they typically try to get away from certain players from this game environment just simply because weather conditions usually throw things off. So I think the opposite today. I think that this is probably the better game environments to want to hop into simply because if the field isn't on it, then there is an extreme leverage. We can go right into the quarterbacks. We'll just start with Caleb Williams, who had a monster week last week. Caleb Williams dropped 38 fantasy points. I mean, these are the reasons why you play a Caleb Williams in fantasy and in daily fantasy. His price point is at $6K this week. It's obviously raised because of some of the ceiling games that he has put. We have the 24 fantasy game, the 29, and now the 38.7. The New York Giants defense, their secondary is really bad. They have a really solid front four with Dexter Lawrence, Kayvon Thibodeau. You have Brian Burns, and you have Abdul Carter, the rookie. I mean, it's a really solid line up front. I think that that's going to cause some problems for sure. And one of the weakest point that they're probably going to attack on this Bears team is the left tackle, undrafted tackle Theo Benedict, who is our current left tackle for the Chicago Bears. I still think that the offensive line played pretty strong last week. I know given the defense wasn't a big opponent to have to worry about in terms of defensive matchups, but the O-line, as far as the rest of the four guys, played well enough. If they give that same amount of time for Caleb Williams, he should be able to attack this secondary. And I think that this is the type of game environment that they might want to let him loose. Another factor into this, before I get to the Giants side, is the running back position. I know last week Kyle Monangai was one of the more popular plays simply because DeAndre Swift wasn't playing. And Kyle Monangai had a monster game last week. This week, we do get DeAndre Swift back, which kind of murkies up a little bit more of that as far as that running back room goes. I think DeAndre Swift is a very interesting play today and a play that I'm intrigued by just simply because this is a play that obviously Kyle Monangai was a guy last week, and now no one's going to probably want to touch this because now we have two guys in that backfield. I still think DeAndre Swift was playing really, really good football. And once again, the Bears are a top 3 run offense. So when you have teams that are in the top of the league in those areas, you want to attack that. And because the Giants' run defense has been awful, this is probably another way you can get to this game if you don't feel comfortable going with a quarterback like Caleb Williams, which is fine. And again, he had a monster week last week, and Roma Dunze had 0 fantasy points. So that's just to show you, if you would have stacked him with the wrong guy, a guy at that price point in Roma Dunze, your lineup probably was going to have a little harder time reaching anywhere near the tops of the leaderboard. I do believe that today's a good bounce back game for Roma Dunze. This is a type of matchups that he usually attacks really well, man coverages, and the Giants typically run that on the defensive side. All right, now on the other side of this game, Jackson Dart is 5,700. Jackson Dart has been really good for fantasy purposes. Jackson Dart is currently QB3 overall in scoring since he took over in week 4. That's crazy. QB3 in fantasy overall scoring since he took over in week 4. He is currently averaging 22.3 points per game over that stretch and has 3 top 6 scoring weeks over his past 4 games. And if you've been watching the Chicago Bears like I have a ton, this defense can and absolutely get torched. We saw it last week. Joe Flacco had career highs, and I'm not joking with that, career high numbers last week at the age of up north of 40, towards the very end of his career. The man is putting career high numbers. That's how easy this defense is to attack. Now, the biggest difference between this kind of game environment versus last week's game environment, it's not just the weather. One of the bigger parts of this is the weapons. We don't have a Jamar Chase or a T. Higgins on a team. We have Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, and even Rayburn McLeod, who just started playing, I believe it was last week, for the New York Giants. I still think guys like Wan'Dale Robinson, he's going to be a little chalkier today just because of the defensive matchup. I still think Darius Slayton could be a really interesting play today because he's kind of the guy who beats you up top. He burns out the defense, and he has high ceiling games. I think that if you're trying to pair Jackson Dart, it's a really interesting move to do that. I'm also a big proponent of getting quarterbacks like this and running them naked, like they say in daily fantasy. You can run a Jackson Dart, for instance, with someone from the Chicago Bears side, if it's DeAndre Swift, who I mentioned, or even one of the wide receivers. Like I said, I think Roma Dunze has a better game. And if you're looking for something huge for tournament plays, another guy who plays really well versus this type of defensive coverage and is leading the teams in kind of those routes is Luther Burden. But again, those are kind of the type of plays you play in these type of tournaments, these $1 million tournaments where we have over 161,000 people in it. All right, another quarterback I want to get to is Josh Allen. Josh Allen is playing the Miami Dolphins. And if you've seen in previous years, Josh Allen and Tua tend to have really good matchups as far as these games go. Miami obviously just looks like a whole different team now. They look really bad. Their defense is pretty bad. They've given up on players. They've traded away players, and they're really just, and then they're hurt too, right? So on top of all that, but this is a divisional rival, and usually these type of game environments still happen to come out differently as far as outcomes go. It may look easy on paper, and it probably is going to be, but these are still the kind of games that can show up. Miami is very familiar with the Sean McDermott defense, and they're very familiar with how Josh Allen plays. So those are the things that you definitely don't want to take away. And if you're in daily fantasy or even fantasy, right, you kind of want a game where we can push Josh Allen a little bit more so we could get his upside and his ceiling. Josh Allen, there's not much you can have to say. I think one of the hardest things, we talk about this on week-to-week shows, is playing him with who. We just got news Josh Palmer is going to be inactive. Hasn't been too much of fantasy relevant this season. But, who do you want to play? Is it Keon Coleman? Do you want to give him a shot at his price point? Or Dalton Kincaid, who I think is a great way to stack. Dalton Kincaid has looked good this season so far. He's had a really good season. And I think that that's one way to attack this Miami defense. So Josh Allen is a guy you want to play. Dalton Kincaid is a guy on the name. And then obviously James Cook. James Cook, we've already seen how well he plays, especially against the Carolina Panthers. and we saw the type of game he pulled off. I'll pull it up real quick right here. James Cook had a 36 fantasy point game versus a Miami defense that just can't stop anything really at this point. This is another way to attack it. I tend to not like to pair both, but it's still very capable of both of them giving you a high scoring game. I don't hate it at all, especially in a tight week in daily fantasy such as this. So that's one way. Real quick on the Miami Dolphins side, and I'm mentioning these games because these are some of the more popular games today, and I think that's really important to mention. Devon Achane is one of the more popular plays today. Devon Achane is 7,400, and as we have always known with Achane, I still feel like we haven't gotten that game. We did get a 34 fantasy point game, but he's still fully capable of up northward of 30 fantasy points, which is one of the reasons why I'm very intrigued to still play him, even at the ownership that he carries today. The matchup is soft too. The Buffalo Bills run defense has not been able to do well. And if there's one way Mike McDaniel is probably going to attack this defense, it's going to be probably through Devon Achane. And if they don't, then, you go the other way with a Jalen Waddle at wide receiver. Before I continue, just want to mention, if you guys are hopping on the show, thank you so much for joining. And if you guys have a question as far as fantasy football start sit questions, more than welcome to ask a DFS question too if needed. But if it's a start and sit questions, please let me know if it's a half PPR, PPR, and how many teams are in that league. All right, for quarterback, we mentioned Josh Allen, Jackson Dart. One name that I'd have to mention, or two more names I want to mention, is Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's come back, and he's back. And this is going to be big time. Right now, with the way Baltimore has lost these games right here, they're looking to just win out all the way through. And I think we should see a really good matchup today with Minnesota. Now, Minnesota is typically the type of defense that he can have issues with. But right now, with the way this team is functioning right now, they're going to find every way to get Lamar rolling. So if I'm thinking really closely here as far as Minnesota goes, I believe Minnesota is going to find every way to neutralize Derrick Henry, which hasn't been hard. I know that's unfortunate to even say that towards the tail end of his career, but they're going to find ways to just stop Derrick Henry today and force Lamar Jackson to be the guy, because they're going to try to pressure him at most. I think Lamar comes out on the winning side of this and pulls off a big game. I like Lamar Jackson. Cheap pass catcher to put next to him is Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is only 5,900. I want to be very careful when I say only, because last week we got DK Metcalf at 5,500. Very cheap, one of the cheapest price points he's had, and he gave us a stinker. He hurt me in a lot of fantasy football leagues as well with his 2-3 point fantasy week. So Zay Flowers with Lamar back should be a nice little pairing, especially when Lamar is under center. His tight ends are very cheap as well. So I just feel like the environment, if this game were to shoot out, we have places to attack. We got Andrews at, what was that, 3,400? What is it? Yeah, 3,400, which is very cheap for the tight end position. And then if we're talking about the Minnesota side, now listen, Jackson Dart hasn't, as far as the whole season goes, and I know he's been out a few games, JJ McCarthy hasn't looked the greatest. But I will say, for fantasy purposes, last week he was able to do so, did it at a cheap price. He's 4,900 today, just as he was 4,900 last week. He put up 19 fantasy points. That's perfectly good at that price point. And then playing cheaper at that price, right? Given the price of the quarterback position with Lamar Jackson being over 6.8K, right? You have players that you can attack here and create a nice little stack with. Justin Jefferson is 7.9. You have Jordan Addison, who's also a really solid play today. Jordan Addison is only 5,400. So if you're looking to stack that game in that type of game environment, that's one way to go. And the other name I wanted to throw out, one of the guys who's right now one of the favorites to win the MVP currently, is Drake May. Drake May is having a monster second year, and he's playing a Tampa Bay defense that's usually really good against the run. Their secondary hasn't been good, and I expect them to do just that. They're going to find ways to attack. We have news that Ramondre Stevenson is out, so we have another week of Travion Henderson, who didn't have a bad week, but we still saw Terrell Jennings, I believe his name is, the other young running back in there, kind of vulture a rushing touchdown, which is always frustrating and annoying because we're waiting for that Travion Henderson game. Well, I think Travion Henderson has a really good matchup this week. I did mention that run defense is one of the biggest strengths for the Tampa Bay Bucks, but one of the things that they get hurt against a lot are pass catching running backs. Travion Henderson is fully capable of doing that, and I fully expect him to be the passing down back, which gives him a bit of an upside, especially with Ramondre Stevenson out. If you're looking to pair anybody with Drake May, Stephon Diggs, Hunter Henry, those are names that I want to definitely keep an eye out for. I will be answering questions shortly. I just want to get through this real quickly here. I'm going to name one running back here, and he's at the very top, 9,000 for Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey, I mean, he leads the NFL in touches, which is 229, and yards from scrimmage, which is 1122 yards. He has accounted for a league high 49.3% of his team's touches. Like that's, I mean, Christian McCaffrey is literally the entirety of that offense for Kyle Shanahan. It's hard to just tell you one reason not to play him every week, especially in season long. Still great play. Even at that price point, we're lucky we don't have to worry about Jonathan Taylor today. And I know he's doing his thing against the Berlin game currently happening right now versus the Atlanta Falcons. But that's just someone we don't have to look at this week in terms of price point up there and getting killed with them, as he gets usually these 3 touchdown games. But yeah, the Rams haven't allowed a rushing touchdown to a running back yet, and are allowing one of the fewest fantasy points per touch to the backfield. But if there is a game or a running back that I think that can exploit that, especially division rivals such as the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, I think Christian McCaffrey is that kind of guy who is fully capable of scoring that first rushing touchdown versus this team. The other guy I want to mention, he's going to be chalky. He's going to be a guy everybody's going to be playing. And if you have him in your fantasy leagues, please start him. He is officially RB1 for the Carolina Panthers, and that is Rico Dowdle. Rico Dowdle is having a year. And he hasn't even started for most of the year. But look at these numbers, the games that he has started: 35 fantasy points, 36 fantasy points. Last week, first week starting in a while since these previous games, 31 fantasy points. Rico Dowdle, in his 3 starts with the Panthers, Dowdle has been RB1, RB2, and RB2 in weekly scoring. He is now 3rd in the NFL in rushing yards, which is at 735 yards, only behind Jonathan Taylor at 895 yards and James Cook at 867. Mind you, he's only had 3 starts. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. Dowdle is just, it's so hard not to play him. He's also facing a New Orleans defense that can't stop the run either. So if you have Rico Dowdle in your fantasy leagues, and if you're about to ask me a Rico Dowdle question, more than likely Rico Dowdle is your answer. And for today in daily fantasy, he's kind of a lock button for me. I'm not too worried about the price because he has been absolutely obliterating every price point that he's been given up to this point. I mean, the guy is playing at the price point of a 7 to 8K running back. So that's Rico Dowdle there. I mentioned Christian McCaffrey, Rico Dowdle. There are other running backs. Jahmyr Gibbs, I know he had a lower usage last week versus, the Minnesota Vikings. Gave you a 5 fantasy point outing. And there's some really cool nuggets I saw out there. It seemed like Brian Flores was finding ways to attack him as far as a pass blocker, and they were utilizing that strategy to take Jahmyr Gibbs out the game so they can get more David Montgomery, because they know how lethal this guy is, and they were able to actually come out victorious in that, and they also won the game. But Jahmyr Gibbs should have a bounce back versus a Washington Commanders defense that also has been really bad, just really bad. And the way they play, that's also the team that eliminated them last year from their chances to further in the playoffs. This is a team, if you saw how the Lions responded to the Chicago Bears earlier this year, as far as getting Ben Johnson, some of those narratives that we believe it, they are the type of team. Dan Campbell's the type of coach that keeps his foot on the pedal, on the gas pedal, doesn't let go. So if this is that type of game environment, and we can get right into this one, Jahmyr Gibbs is someone you want to look at. Jared Goff is a great option today, and I think his two wide receivers, Amon-Ra St. Brown has a phenomenal matchup today. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be a popular play today. I think a guy who's going to get a little bit of less ownership, obviously, than Amon-Ra St. Brown is Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams is someone that, listen, he'll burn you. He's got a nasty floor, but he's got a phenomenal upside. As I say that and pull this up, look at that. Like 0, 2, 5, 6, and we're getting 21, we're getting 18 and 16, but he's still fully capable of doing even more than this. This man can hit you at anywhere 30 fantasy point. We've been waiting for this breakout game. They've been talking this man up all year. We literally heard this week about Isaac Tesla that they're planning to start utilizing him anymore. And the last time we heard that, they barely used him either. So I just think there's a lot of coach speak on these details, these things. And with these kind of matchups that they see, Jaden Daniels is out on the other end as well. These are the type of games that I think that Detroit finds a way to obviously win, but more importantly, get guys like J-Mo involved. They're getting closer to the playoffs now, and they're going to want to get these guys moving. They want to get these guys rolling. And I think this is the type of game we should expect from Jameson Williams. Hopefully the big game that we've been waiting all season long. Amon-Ra St. Brown is still a phenomenal play. Again, if you're looking to get contrarian and find a player to leverage maybe the ownership on Amon-Ra St. Brown, that is someone to definitely talk about. All right, we talked about running backs. I've given you some wide receivers. The other names, Brian Thomas Jr. is out. Parker Washington becomes a play. Very tough Houston Texans defense. We have I think one stinky name, and I'll probably end the wide receiver talk here with him. I think Rashid Shaheed is a very interesting play. I'm a big fan of Rashid Shaheed. I think he's a very underrated wide receiver in this league. He was on the New Orleans Saints. He gets traded to the Seattle Seahawks, which I think was a phenomenal move by the Seattle Seahawks. They got Clint Kubiak at offensive coordinator over there. Clint Kubiak was the OC for the New Orleans Saints last season. And if you saw their EPA numbers, their like offensive rankings and stuff within the first 4 to 5 weeks when Derek Carr was cooking, when everybody thought the Saints were going to be a playoff team before their downfall, Clint Kubiak was the guy behind all of that as far as the offensive stuff goes. Rashid Shaheed is going on to a new team like the Seattle Seahawks. Usually we temper our expectations. Well, I'm starting this guy in fantasy leagues today. I'm not afraid of it because usually the thought process behind a new receiver joining a new team is learning the offensive playbook, learning the lingo, learning all that stuff. He already learned that last season, and he played really well under Clint Kubiak. I'm pretty sure he's going to come right back in to the Seattle Seahawks, and Clint Kubiak is going to have a lot of plays set up for him. Hopefully, that's the goal, right? Especially since I plan to start him and possibly quite playing him. I think people are going to temper some expectations with him. I think this is a great play today, and I think he's going to be putting up big numbers. I took some props on him as well. His prop numbers are very low. I think they were like under 40 receiving yards. I like overs on those. I think that he's going to do really, really well. And again, I really hope so because I'll be starting him today. But Rashid Shaheed is my sneaky kind of play, under the radar play for today and for right reasons. Tight end position, I'll go through this real quickly. You're seeing the top player right here, tight end one right now, 6,000. So you know why he's expensive. You know everything about that. Still a good play if you want to play that game environment a little bit because Sam Darnold's been playing it phenomenal. JSN, I didn't even need to talk about JSN. You already know how great JSN is. JSN is up there in price, but he's still worth playing. But if you want to get involved in that game environment, I think Trey McBride is an excellent play to bring back in. We're seeing guys like George Kittle, who has also a really good matchup today. And then you got guys down here. Harold Phantom Jr. is expected to play today, but he has a hamstring issue, and those are kind of little things that you kind of temper a little expectations. So I think guys like David Njoku at 3,200 with a quarterback such as Dylan Gabriel, who really just targets his tight ends. He's not doing good as far as an NFL football thrower is. In college, he looked a lot different, and I'm talking about Dylan Gabriel. but he likes his tight ends. Those are the easier throws he gets to versus a soft matchup like the Jets goes. Jets defense has been awful. And not only have they been awful, they just lost two of their best players on the defensive end, Quinnen Williams and Sauce Gardner. We could throw in Quishon Judkins having a pretty monster game today, a team that runs really well and with a defense that no longer has one of their better run defenders on their team. So that's just a few guys that I wanted to mention at the tight end position. You could take a shot on Colston Loveland. That's perfectly fine. His price did go up at 4,100, but you already saw the type of upside he can have. As far as that, those are the guys I really like at the tight end position. I'm going to name you a defense. The two defenses that I think are going to be more popular today, it's going to be the Browns because they're playing the Giants. I'm sorry, the Browns because they're playing the Jets, the other New York team, and they're at 2,900, which is not a terrible price. And then the other cheaper price defense that people are going to want to play is the Buccaneers. So if you're not playing Drake May or you're not playing any of those guys right there, you can go down this route. I kind of like the New England offense right now and how they're operating. You can go Jaguars down here as well if you're not into Davis Mills. CJ Stroud is out, and Houston's offense has not really played well. You got the Jaguars defense down here below. As far as that, if you want to pay up, Seahawks are probably one of the better defenses up here, even versus an Arizona team right now that's currently humming right now with Jacoby Brissett, which is so cool to see. You got the Panthers defense up there as well. All right, that's enough for daily fantasy. Let's get right into these questions. I spoke enough on this. I thank you guys so much for sticking around. Let's get right to the first question here. We got Jonathan Gomez. Thank you as always for hopping on the show. I appreciate you, Manungai or QJ, leaning Manungai due to the matchup. Man, I actually like Quentin Johnston this week. I really do. I like Quentin Johnston. I would lean Quentin Johnston this week. I think that matchup is really good. Now, Kyle Manungai has looked great, and he looked great last week, but Ben Johnson was really clear. And like I mentioned, I'm a fan of Swift today, just simply because he had the RB1 role, and I think they're going to split it today. But as far as a guy who, I mean, if this was half PPR, I'd probably lean Manungai more because he has an opportunity to score the touchdown. I don't know, man. I think it's a flip of a coin, but I'm going to lean on Quentin Johnston here, especially in PPR. I kind of like Quentin Johnston this week. I really do. All right, we have E.G. Swift or Woody Marks, half PPR. I'm going to lean Swift here until I see even more of a workload for Woody Marks. I like Swift today. Who else is how about Jackson Dart against the terrible Bears defense? Thank you, Jason, for hopping on. Yeah, Jackson Dart is a great play. I spoke about him earlier, and the Bears defense has been terrible. I cannot lie. It's been awful. And the fact that they stood in that game last week spoke volume on how good Ben Johnson has been on the offensive side. Hopefully we start getting some guys on the Bears defense healthy again and things can start turning around. But yeah, Jackson Dart's a great play versus this awful Bears defense. Andrew's on. Thank you, Andrew, for hopping on the show. Harold Fannin or Hunter Henry, half-point PPR. I already mentioned Harold Fannin Jr.'s a little banged up today. I like Hunter Henry a lot today. I think that he's got a great matchup today versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I would lean Hunter Henry there. I think he's got touchdown opportunity for sure today. We got Preston Flood. Thank you for hopping on. Rank Rome. OD, Tet, Shakir, PPR. Roma Dune say Tet or Shakir. I would lean. I think this would be the rank I'm going to go with. Rome, Tet, and Shakir, just the way you ranked it right there. We got John Gomez has another one. Prater or Thicker Kicker. Matt Prater. Let's go with Matt Prater. We don't know too much about Buddy from the Rams yet. E.g. Rams or Bucks defense. Yeah, I kind of mentioned how much I like New England. I lean Rams. I still think like Christian McCaffrey may have a solid game, but that's just fantasy relevancy. Like he can catch 6 catches, all for PPR purposes. But as far as like the team that might pull out the win, I think the Rams have a stronger lean there. So give me the Rams on that. Chaser said, I skipped your question. Hey, I'm looking for the to play. Any recommendations? I know you're a big Caleb Williams fan, so play Caleb Williams, who's a good fantasy player currently right now, and hopefully becomes an even better quarterback in the NFL. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for hopping on the show. Really do appreciate it. I had some technical difficulties last week as far as getting my waiver wire show. I will get that out this week and promise to get you that out there, especially as we get closer and closer to playoff. It's going to get a little harder to find those waiver wire guys, but I'll talk through some strategy and some thought processes that I'm going through, as well as I am hoping to land a few leagues in some of these playoff teams. Thank you so much, guys. Meet you at the top, and I hope you guys win all your matchups. Take care. Peace.